Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
AI is already inside classrooms across China, personalizing homework, grading essays, and tracking student data. That, of course, is not entirely new. But today we focus in on the teachers. They're being retrained and redefined not just as knowledge providers, but as ethical guides in a digital world. So who shapes whom in this new era of AI education? Is it the teachers, the students, or perhaps the machine itself? We're live from our studios here in Beijing. This is Roundtable. I'm Steve. Thanks very much for being with us today. And for the show, I'm with Fei Fei and Yushan. First up, across China, AI is no longer a future idea in education. It's already inside the classrooms. Around the country, students are getting personalized homework, AI tools are helping grade essays and analyze learning data, and teachers are using smart systems to design lessons and track progress in real time. But it's not just about efficiency, is it? It's a redesign of what teaching actually means. And today we look at the teachers here in China, who are now being retrained and reevaluated, and yes, even redefined as learning designers, ethical guides, and guardians of human connection in an increasingly digital classroom. Fei Fei and Yushan, good afternoon to you both. I suppose it would be an exciting time / stressful time / busy time for teachers across the country because their job as they knew it is now being reshuffled, if I could use that word.
Yeah, and like you mentioned earlier, Steve, we've touched upon this topic before, how AI is so deeply integrated into classrooms nowadays, but this is something new. This is something that we've never seen happened ever before in such a large scale that's covering China as it comes out as a national action plan that's being rolled out very recently. So we're talking about the role of artificial intelligence in reshaping education. That's covering how we're weaving AI into every aspect of teaching and learning. That's across each and every step. That's the process and before and after a class, even how to manage the class. So each and every aspects of a teacher's role in managing students. And the action plan that I mentioned earlier is what we've tried to put in practice in order to achieve that goal.
Well, I think it makes sense because we've covered stories on the show where companies are now looking for AI talent.
Right.
And if companies are looking for AI talent, that means the universities are going to have to change their programs to reflect that. Mm-hmm. And if universities are changing their programs, then that means students will begin earlier in their AI preparation. So that means high school, middle school, and maybe even down to elementary school, or who knows, even kindergarten. And if the students are having to change, well, then the people who are in charge of those students would have to change as well. And that's where the teachers obviously come in. And that's why I say all of this, when we put it together, makes a whole lot of sense. It's a national trend here in the country.
Yeah, not only that, I think not only that it's about training more talents when it comes to AI development or nurturing interest for this particular technology from early age. I think the action plan also hopes to weave the AI element in basically every aspect of the social life, including education, meaning that pretty much most of the people in our society here in China could at least understand how AI works and know how to use AI in their daily life.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And I left that out, didn't I? Because I just talked about, companies and I focused on, getting a job in the future. But it's not just about getting a job. It's about living, I suppose, successfully in the next, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years, so to speak. Okay, so to achieve everything that they want to, the Ministry of Education said, by the way, that by 2030, the country is to establish a comprehensive AI education system that spans all levels of schooling and extends to the broader public, which again is all encompassing, right? And to achieve that goal, the AI Plus Education Initiative, which aims to integrate AI into classrooms from a very early stage as the country itself accelerates its own efforts to develop the tech and adapt its economy to the digital future that we are encountering now. The teachers are now being involved in this whole plan.
Yeah, the teachers, they are required, let's put it that way, to have such a digital literacy and have the capability of managing AI tools in all different elements of their teaching. That's including the before, the during, and the after of classes. So that include helping teachers prepare lessons and to analyze their students' progress, their performances, and also to automatically generate teaching materials for the teachers to save their time and efforts and to improve lesson plans through human/AI collaboration. And then it also supports tasks like homework management, automated grading, and Q&A sessions with the students, and also tutoring. So we are not, just in short, we are not trying to teach the teachers to become code writers. That's the job of code writers. We are trying to train this current, if not the entire future batches and groups of teachers to really know how to utilize AI to the maximum efforts and to apply that in their everyday teaching practices.
Sure, because if you do that, if you achieve your goal, if you do that successfully, then you'll be reducing the teachers' workloads overall. Efficiency will get a boost, and teaching quality, I would think, would get a boost in the end as well, which means if the teaching quality is better, the students are having a better experience. They're also using AI to analyze what's happening in the classrooms, which is interesting to me.
Yeah, because when it comes to teachers, I mean, in China's cases, in Beijing at least one teacher is overseeing more than 40 students at once in a classroom. And of course, it's very difficult when you're trying to juggle between, writing down your teaching plans, managing about the teaching materials, and also getting to know a bunch of, for example, teenagers who are having their very different and distinct problems and issues as they grow. So it will be very, very difficult and challenging and stressing on some level to these teachers. And now with these AI technology tools coming into hand, they can give teachers like useful insights, and so that they can adjust and improve their teaching. And also they can tell teacher on general what is happening among the students and what you can do, or maybe developed a customized plan, a tailored plan, or response to different students' problems. And so that's why in this plan that we're talking about, it also suggests bringing AI into teacher qualification exams and certificates process. So that's very interesting. We're not only talking about mandatory requirements, we're talking about if you want to become a teacher in China, it means this is something you must know.
Yeah, it's mandatory for future candidates that wants to be teacher to go through that exam. There's a national exam,
which is super hard.
Which is hard to get, for all that wants to become a official, legitimate teacher here in China. And in the future, I read through their chats on personal blogs among the teachers. They're discussing what they need to do in the future in order to prepare for that exam. It's been there for a very long time, that exam, and now starting from this year, I think they're adding AI education as part of the qualification. As per, you got to take exam for that too.
In the classrooms, we're going to be seeing dedicated courses and efforts. She talked about weaving, the subjects or AI into the subjects across various disciplines. What will that look like, for example, in primary and secondary schools?
Yeah, starting from primary and secondary school, I think depending on the local policies, there, at least here in Beijing and a few other cities and regions out there in China, the requirements is for at least 8 study hours. That means 45 minutes of a class per study hour. So 8 study hour per year. That's 2 semesters. semesters. So that's already kind of enrolled into their basic educational programs for primary and secondary school students. They gotta get some hands-on experience on what AI is, what generative AI can do, and hands-on, like really making small projects, and also participate in some of the extended AI-related after-school programs. For example, I read about how students are participating into robotic teams outside of class. That's helping them to learn how to build things like a small car with AI tools. And the tools they mentioned I've never heard of before. It's called Raspberry Pi. But among middle school students, that's something they're using with their level of knowledge and learning experience with AI that they can master to really build something out.
Well, that reminds me that I think it's last semester, which is last year, that my daughter's elementary school, they held an AI competition, which is not asking students to write codes and, build their own AI models. It's more about asking students to use AI models and AI tools and develop an emblem for the school.
Ooh.
And they have like different themes. For example, they want to have, when it comes to climate change, you need to have elements of climate change or traditional Chinese medicine, or there are different other themes there that you can build your emblem, design your emblem around that theme. And that's my first time that my daughter, really get hands-on about using an AI tool. We're basically talking about, your general AI large models like Doubao, like DeepSeek.
Yeah.
But it's her first time using that, and they tried how to design your prompt, how to talk to these kind of AI models, and what kind of reactions you would get from talking to them, and how to know what you are really looking for throughout the exchanges with that AI tool.
That's fantastic because it's so much more than just, here's the basics of this tool, now design an emblem for our school. It's teaching the students all the ins and outs of how to use that tool effectively. What was her reaction to that? Was she excited about it? Was she just like, this is just something I have to do?
She was quite confused at first. She was like, what exactly is my school telling me to do? And so we decided to help her. And by the end of it, she was very, very excited. And after this competition, she also started to use AI tools, answering her own, for example, math questions or questions in writing, so on and so forth.
And that's the kind of intangible, isn't it? It's because if you plant one seed, then that could sprout into a number of different plants. That tool was introduced to your daughter for that specific context, but it inspired her to do her own thing, do her own research, her own learning outside of class. That's really cool. But this isn't entirely new, right? It's not brand new. AI has been a subject for students and teachers now for a little while. In recent years here in China, the Ministry of Education has made AI a major priority. The National Smart Education Platform, which is a one-stop digital education platform that connects every level of education resources nationwide, they now bring together more than 1,000 high-quality AI courses, helping make AI what they call a core course for both teachers and students. But a lot of the times I do reading about this, it seems very, just theoretical to me. It talks about courses, but it doesn't tell me what they're learning. So do you have any examples of specifics of what perhaps that National Smart Education Platform might look like to use it or make use of it?
Yeah, talking about that Smart Education of China platform, I believe that's what you're mentioning. They really paid in a lot of efforts in building this AI segment. That's an individual segment on their webpage, by the way. And I clicked into that AI segment, and it shows that there are several series of classes that just target the topic of AI. And one that caught my eye would be that they invite all the famous individuals here in China to talk about how they design AI. One would be the founder of DeepSeek, and he was there talking about the becoming of AI and how AI is built in practice and also how you can apply it in very practical terms.
So that's just on a government education website. and you just go to that tab and click, and those videos are right there, and you can just watch them right there.
I didn't even register. I click open. I don't even have an account by the fact that I didn't register, and I can already see what's there as a class. And there's also other programs such as the AI plus X, they name it. And the X part could be literally any major: history, architecture, chemistry, or even movie making. So in each of that AI plus X episode, that's about 40 to 50 minutes long per episode, by the way. And the platform, they just invite a professor from a publicly well-known university who works in this specific realm to give an online course on just how AI is making an impact in their individual industry and subjects, and also how teachers, here is where it gets really interesting. It's not just for students to get a general knowledge of what it means for them to study this major and how AI can help, but also how teachers who teach this very subject, who perhaps wants to incorporate AI as part of their teaching plan, how they can improve.
Well, let's talk about the teachers specifically now. What are they actually learning about being trained to use AI? It's the same thing I said before. When I read about this, okay, teachers are asked to be being trained on AI, but what does that mean? And how would that change how they are evaluated or how they are trained or what it means to be a teacher in general?
Well, I think, first of all, they need to have a basic AI literacy for these teachers. So they can be spelling out the AI-related skills and knowledge that an educator is expected to have.
So that would be like basic knowledge of how to use classroom tools, something like that.
But more to that, they're also like the plan, according to the plan, they call for a tiered training programs tailored to different teaching roles. For example, when it comes to teaching history or physics or math or Chinese literature, there needs to be different ways of, utilizing these AI tools, and they are trying. The goal is basically to ensuring a full coverage through multiple forms of training. And the plan also proposes to build scenario-based assessment systems and developing smart and step-by-step evaluation tools, so schools can carry out their own assessment of the teachers' digital and AI skills.
Okay, so those training programs that you mentioned, what are these all about? How long do they go for? Are these weeks long, I wonder? Are they months long? Where are they offered? Is it online? Is it offline? I also want to know about city teachers versus rural teachers. Is there equity here? Everybody has access to these training programs. How do they work?
That's a lot of questions
It
in
is.
one go.
I just gave you 25 questions now. Go.
But let me
Sorry.
try to answer this based on what I've read so far on this AI plus education initiative. The way I see it is there are two type of training in terms of how teachers are being trained to learn about AI. First, there's the AI teachers. That focuses on the teaching staff who perhaps were previous computer science teachers or machine learning teachers. Mm-hmm. So these teachers are literally the first batch that receive the professional training programs on how they can even further their teaching content from just teaching how to type, how to use Microsoft Word, how to make Flash animation like I used to, like when I was a pupil, and how to write code like nowadays, what they're teaching in schools, primary schools and secondary schools, to the fact that how you can actually teach students to use AI. So that requires a certain program. We, for now, don't know in detail like how they are actually training the teachers since the action plan just rolled out. And places like in Beijing and also other provinces in eastern China's Anhui province, they're rolling out their individual local plans ever since I think it was September last year, that they want to select the teachers who perhaps major in information technology to really build a dedicated AI teaching workforce for their individual school and region. So that's the effort that's already been paid. But in detail, how they're being trained, we can perhaps look at the new requirements for teachers nowadays of what actually it takes to become a teacher. And that goes back to the exam that I mentioned earlier, the National Teacher Certificate or Qualification Exam. now that they have AI as part of their qualification test, that also goes into the written exam and the oral or the spoken exam. So for the written exam, they added contents such as testing basic concepts such as AI, generative AI, large language models. So you got to know what those are as a start. And then there is the application in common education scenarios, how to use it, how to make it make sense to the students. And for the spoken test, that's even cuter because you got to give like trial teaching demonstration on just the fact of how AI tools are actually used, how to simulate a real scenario in the classroom to make AI happen and to make students accept that this is just the ecosystem nowadays, that AI is part of what we're learning and is what our teachers are using to teach us. So this is one group of teacher, and then there is the other groups of teacher that Fei Fei mentioned earlier, those that teach history, those that teach Chinese, English. They don't necessarily...
It's all different.
Major in computer science and technology and AI, but what they need to acquire nowadays, whether they are to be teachers, teaching candidates in the future, or already teachers in China, what they need to know, really grasp, is the fact that they need to apply AI as much as possible and use it to design their classes. For example, I think that's one of the schools in Beijing, I don't remember which one exactly, but they are using a device that's AI powered to correct students' English pronunciation one-on-one. So each student holds one of those little devices and they read into the textbook, and the device pick their voice and it will tell them how to better your pronunciation and what mistake you've made. And that device is being assigned to the students, and the data is being sent back to the teachers to better monitor the students. So English teacher, without knowing exactly how code is written for that device, can already use it as part of their teaching program.
You don't need to know how the code got in there.
Yeah. So I don't know if this totally answers your question, but this is how the whole mechanism is out for different teachers to really try to adapt in. And for the rural part, that's really curious because so far, I don't really read so much about how it's being practiced outside of cities, mega cities, and really tech-savvy provinces, such as in Anhui province. We talked about Anhui province in the Yangtze River Delta episode, where we mentioned how they have a lot of infrastructure building in terms of humanoid robots and machine learnings and stuff. So they already have the infrastructure within their power, within their provincial capability in terms of how to bring this to a younger generation in cultivating young talents. But outside of these regions, outside of Anhui and cities like Beijing, we don't yet see how it can really, how it's really turning out.
What we do know, though, is it will culminate in a certification for the teachers after the training, and AI will be incorporated into the National Teacher Certificate Examination and certification requirements. So it's not just a thing, it's going to be a part of the entire process from this point moving forward. What kind of difference are we expecting in the classroom? I don't know. Still too early to know. I'm not sure if there's an answer to this question yet. But will we be able to predict any of the differences?
Well, on top of my head, when Yushan is talking about how teachers will be examined, will be tested in exams, I start to think about when a lot of teachers complaining about how stressful they need to write down their teaching plans.
That's true.
And so that means they need to document the objectives of their design of the classroom and what the goals and what step by step what they plan to do during the classrooms, and they can be quite a burden for a lot of teachers.
Time consuming,
and you need to write it down in a format, and you need to make documentations. And this is where I think AI can be really, really helpful in, for example, helping them prepping for the exams and also release a lot of these burdens. And also when it comes to, the AI's capability of automatically analyze each student's class participation, homework completion, and quiz performance, it saves a lot of time and energy for teachers to get to know each one of the 40 students in her classroom. And then she or he can further design and basically optimize their teaching plans as the semester goes on.
I think by optimize, too, this will allow for more options for the teachers in the way that they teach their subjects in ways that wouldn't have been possible before. Math, probably.
It's a big one.
3, right?
Yeah. Because for my daughter, she's in elementary school. For her first 4 years of her math classes, one of the tasks is to finish about 150 to 100 equation questions every day. And you can imagine for the math teacher, how do you come up with this amount of questions? Right. And then these AI tools come in to help. They can just automatically generate 100 questions with a snap of finger. Saves a lot of time.
Okay, so that's for question generation. But I was thinking more on the 3D side of things, because if you're teaching that aspect of math, you could have, I don't know, maybe a 3D cube that rotates flexibly, and students could use their hands and they could come up with their own questions while you're teaching in that way. It's more engaging.
Yeah, exactly.
For the students too. So yeah, different ways of presenting the same material, but doing it in a way that's a lot more fun for everyone. I think that's probably more fun for the
teachers as well,
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So one of the goals the education ministry said is for the overall goal is to reduce the burden on teachers in terms of their work, the amount of preparation they might need to do in the classroom. But are we going to be seeing what kind of a redefinition of what it means to be a teacher or a teacher within this particular education system?
Yeah, I think now we're witnessing a shift of focus. It's not just the teaching content, but rather who the teachers are focusing nowadays. And the answer always comes back to the students, to the real people, to the real classroom interactions between a human teacher and a human students. And I really want to bring up this quote from Ms. Yang Xiaoying, the principal of the foreign languages primary school under Shenzhen University Education Group. So she mentioned in one of the interviews saying that when AI enters primary and secondary school, the biggest change for teachers is not that they need to become more technical. It means teachers need to understand children better and focus even more on education as a human process. We're cultivating a whole next generation. We're cultivating future workforce and future human. So now that AI can take care of standardized and repetitive tasks, such as the grading and the coming up with questions like you mentioned, Fei Fei. Now the focus is back on what it takes for us to build a holistic person, to educate them into a moral and kind and active person. So how to foster curiosity, protect their imagination instead of building them into a question answering and homework doing machine becomes the priority. Or rather, it's always been the priority, but it can sometimes be misled by other tasks throughout the educational process previously.
This might redefine what it means to be a good teacher.
Yeah, totally.
Too. This might weed out some of the quote-unquote bad teachers who were loving that. Here's your homework, go do this, give it to me, I'll grade it, and next.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This will force teachers to be a lot more on the ball, I would guess.
And also when it comes to, the potential the classrooms holds, it basically, I think, push education beyond that confines of that classroom. That meaning that when I start to think about when I first started to learn about physics and mathematics, I struggled a lot because it's all 2D.
And you're not alone.
Yeah. Everything is on paper.
I think that's why we're here.
Right? That's why we're not scientists.
Yeah.
It's just too hard to imagine, for example, all the different forces in physics. And when you talking about the cube, Steve, I remembered how I struggled to understand the cube on paper. And now I think the teachers, no matter it's in an urban setting or a rural setting, taking advantage of these AI models or AI tools, they're able to finally show the students what is actually happening in the real world. What does it look like in the real world? And what the problems you are going to run in the real world and how you will solve it. And when the infrastructure is there, when the literacy and the training is there, it's been built, I think they can also tear down the boundaries between the urban and rural schools, meaning that even though you are staying in a small village, you probably don't have the resources to talk to a native English speaker, but you still have the channels to get to practice your speaking English anyway. So I think it's right now it seems like a boundary. It seems like when for rural schools out there, they don't have the smart system ready, they don't have the screens in their classrooms. But I think with this kind of plan in place, one step after another, the infrastructure will be there, and then the barriers will be gone.
If you want to use language learning as an example, having the AI tool, Yushan, you said it before, they can correct your pronunciation on the spot, right? So that might help to level the playing field, because you may have an instance where, I don't know, in a bigger city, you might have a teacher, a native speaker of that particular language, where the teacher themselves can help with that perfect pronunciation. Maybe somewhere else, the teacher wouldn't have perfect pronunciation, and therefore right away the playing field isn't exactly level. But if you have an AI tool in place that can kind of teach the same thing to everyone, everywhere, then that benefits everyone. This seems like a win-win-win-win-win all across the board. But with that said, of course, there are some difficulties when you're introducing AI into the classroom. And part of the difficulty, I think, would be it's brand new for everyone involved.
Yeah, of course, like any technology out there, AI still has its limitations. So for now, it is still imperfect in so many ways in certain areas of professional judgments. Like, for example, in essay grading, it may struggle with specific genres like travel writing. Like, are those destinations described in this composition real, or how are you going to give a practical grade for something that's as abstract as something that's described as a feeling when you see a scenery? And then for some math problems, which with easier grading mechanism, it cannot yet fully evaluate the thinking process. And across different digital platforms and schools, data kind of mismatch between school and educational systems still exist, meaning that there's not yet a unified standard or unified database out there for the teachers to refer to as a platform to borrow experiences from. And also, I think you kind of touched upon that too, Fei Fei, but we are indeed at the beginning phase of witnessing how AI is deeply integrated into both the teacher and the teaching content recipient sides, which is the student sides. Because, like back in 2024, there's a survey done by MOE, the Ministry of Education, who found that early 32% of in-service teachers in China are proficient in using AI tools for teaching, while in sharp contrast, 86% of students worldwide, they are already using AI tools in their daily learning. I mean,
students are better on
our kids, they grow in the digital era. They know a lot about the tech and stuff, while the teachers are finding it hard but slowly catching up.
I bet there are some kids out there who could already teach some of these classes,
exactly,
let alone be students in them. Times are changing, that is for sure.